No governor should come here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities, they got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption, they lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we've took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up if you're not eligible for Social Security. So the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Here we go on a Friday. How about it? Our favorite day of the week. And this is Friday, February 6th. If you're keeping track, this is the Bill Press Show. You're in the right place for all the news of the day here on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV, our worldwide video stream. Good to see you. Again, this is a place to be if you want to know what's going on here in Washington, D.C., around the country, or around the globe. We've got it covered. We'll tell you what's going on, and then we want to hear from you about what you think about it, what it all means to you. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. That's how you reach us on the phone. And, of course, you can send us your comments throughout the show on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Oh, my God. Brian Williams, is he in hot water? That apology he made the other night didn't really cut it. People are saying you don't just misremember whether you were in a helicopter that was shot down. He was not. He said he was. He apologized. Some people are saying this wasn't a case, again, of misremembering. This was a case of just lying to the American people. And more voices are asking, how can he remain as the anchor of NBC News when you've got to trust the anchor to tell the truth? Can we trust Brian Williams any longer? President Obama today on the road again, out to Indianapolis to talk economy, to talk jobs, to get back on that focus of how to help the middle class. And Senate Democrats were successful yesterday in blocking the bill that passed the House, which would cut off all funding for the Department of Homeland Security and shut down the Department of Homeland Security, putting this nation at risk only because Republicans are still whining about President Obama's executive order on the Dreamers, on immigration. Senate Democrats shot that bill down, so Republicans have to go back to the drawing board. Again, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS and saddle up for this morning's program.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that would be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The Pope is coming. The Pope is coming on September 24 for an address to a joint session of Congress, and this time John Boehner coordinated with the White House. Maybe he learned his lesson. What do you say? Hello, everybody. Do you realize it's Friday? Oh, man. Yes, indeed. It's already Friday, February 6th. Your favorite day, our favorite day of the week. Any Friday will do. This is the big one. Hallelujah, indeed. So good to see you. We made it through another week. Can you believe it? And we're already well into the month of February here in 2015. So good to see you today. We will wrap things up before we let you go into the weekend, give you the latest news, and bring you up to date on all the big news of the week with our roster of guests today. And, of course, with all of you all across America, coast to coast, on your local progressive talk radio station, all across America, coast to coast, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide, every corner of this planet. Because if you got an electronic device, we are there with you.
Can't get away from us.
Can't get away from us.
Try.
That's right. You can run, but you can't hide.
That's right.
On TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Hail, the gang's all here. Peter Rugburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello.
Friday.
Woo, happy Friday.
Yes, indeed.
I love Fridays.
Damn right.
Alicia Cruz here, ready to take your calls. Don't forget, you are part of the program. The way you do it, give us a call. 866-55-PRESS. We want to hear from you. And Alicia will get you right on the air. If you're not near phone, or you have given up your phone, and just, you're in the 21st century, send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, on the job this morning again, and keeping the cameras and the lights on, and making us look so good on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. Well, look as good as we can.
Yeah,
I guess
look,
we have
it's
to
Friday.
say that, right.
It's been a long week.
Yeah. Poor Tiger Woods. He's not having such a great season, right? I think
he's having a rough time.
Yeah. I was reading this morning about he was trying out he shot an 82 the other day. His worst 82. I mean, I would give my left what to shoot an 82, right? But that is the worst of his professional
That's really
career.
Bad for him.
Yeah. And so he's trying out for this, whatever the tournament is in La Jolla, which has always been a really good course for him. And it was so foggy that I never heard about this before. They cut the tryout from 18 holes down to 9.
Oh, wow.
And he I don't think he made the cut. He was saying
he shot horribly.
Horribly. And he was saying that he was practicing his chipping, and he said, the problem is my goods are really good and my bads are really bad. I could say the same thing.
I mean, right. Yeah.
Now, there are a lot more bads than goods.
That's the key.
Yeah. But for me, you expect that, not for Tiger. So what is his excuse? Well, he's not talking about losing a tooth anymore. No, now it's a different part of the anatomy.
My glutes are shutting off. I tried to activate my glutes as best I could. They never stayed activated.
My glutes are shutting off.
Trying to activate. He's blaming on deactivated glutes.
All right.
Gluteus maximus.
All right. Now, I was going to gluteus maximus. That's what you sit on, right?
That's your butt.
That's your butt.
Yeah.
What do you mean his glute was?
You gotta get those glutes activated, Jack.
My glutes are shutting off. I tried to activate my glutes the best I could. They never stayed activated.
They never stayed activated.
How do you get your glutes activated?
You gotta engage them.
Gotta run around.
You gotta work those glutes.
You gotta work those glutes, baby. Yeah, you know what I mean? And by the way, I mean, I haven't played golf in a long time, but I don't remember using my glutes to hit the ball. Right? I mean...
That must be your problem, Bill.
Yeah,
you only used your glutes.
You gotta use your glutes.
I mean, I took...
Nothing's worse than deactivated glutes.
I even took golf lessons, right?
Yeah.
How to hold the club, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, swing back, shoulders, arms, elbows, head. Keep the head down. I never had any instruction on my glutes.
Activate the glutes.
No.
That costs a little bit more money to find out about activating the glutes.
Activate those glutes, ladies and gentlemen.
I think that's
the problem with your golf game.
Now we know what separates the men from the boys
Apparently
in
so.
golf. Yeah, from the sheep from the goats. It's the glutes. God. All right.
Shutting off.
Sad.
Yeah.
All right. There. Learned something today, though. Yes, indeed, we did. What a lineup we have for you today. Susan Paige, as always, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today, here with us on a Friday. Bob Cusack, the new editor-in-chief of The Hill, will be here as a friend of Bill. Jonathan Allen has got the great book out on Hillary. It's out now in paperback. He'll be in studio with us. Who else is coming? Hadas Gold from The Hill and Mark Leibovich from The Washington Post. My God, what a lineup!
What else do you want from us?
Yeah, I think
on Friday,
I might.
You kidding me?
I might stay around for all 3 hours. And Brian Williams, can he survive as the anchor of the NBC Nightly News? Will he survive? Should he survive? 866-55-PRESS. Get ready, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Congratulations to Richard Sherman of the Seattle Seahawks. Remember, we were worried about whether or not little baby Sherman was going to show up for the Super Bowl. Little baby waited until yesterday.
Aww.
Richard Sherman tweeted out, said, "My son sure does know how to make an entrance. 2/5/15, yesterday's date. Is it a coincidence, or is he just that clever? Either way, I'm ecstatic." Of course, that is a reference to the fact that Sherman wears number 25, and his son came out on 2/5. So congratulations.
Cute.
Yes, indeed. The mother and baby are doing just fine. Pope Francis, Bill, I told you yesterday the bad news about how he was getting involved in transgender and gay adoptions.
You said about... Right.
He continues to make waves. Yesterday, he said he thinks it's fine for parents to smack their children as punishment for bad behavior. So he says it's okay to spank, essentially. There was a campaign that was asking him to speak out on child protection, and in front of his general audience in St. Peter's Square on Wednesday in Italy, he talked about the responsibilities of fatherhood, and he said that it's okay if you hit the children a bit, but never in the face, so as not to humiliate them, and then walk away from it. So you hit them and be done. But don't hit them in the face.
And come on, Pope. Corporal punishment you're holding is corporal
very
punishment.
antiquated notions here.
Yeah. Well, you can't expect them to be right about everything.
I know. And farewell to Ronald Reed, Brattleboro, Vermont resident, who passed away at the age of 92. He was a modest man. He drove a 2007 Toyota Yaris. He lived in a very small house, but when he died, it turned out he was worth $8 million.
My God.
Wow.
Whoa.
$8 million. He, in his will, left a gift of $1.2 million to the Brooks Memorial Library up in Brattleboro, Vermont.
Oh, great.
So there you go. You never know
Very
who you're dealing with.
No, I wonder if Bernie Sanders knew him.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Good question.
Just ask Bernie next time I see him. All right. Yes, indeed. If Brian Williams thought that he put this little tempest behind him, he was wrong. No sooner had he issued his apology the other night on NBC than people started speaking up saying, hey, wait a minute. This is a lot more serious than just misremembering something. Okay, now you're just catching up here. Let's bring you up to date, and then tell you the latest. And I want to get your thoughts on whether or not you think he should be fired from NBC for, well, let's just be blunt, telling a lie, right? I mean, for years now, ever since he's been saying that in 2003, when we invaded Iraq, he went over, which he did. That he was in a helicopter, which he was, and with a group of helicopters that got ahead of the pack, actually got ahead of the troops, and were in enemy territory. They were forced to land, and they spent 2 or 3 nights there in the desert until they were rescued. All of that is true. What's not true is, he said, the helicopter he was in was shot down. So basically, he came under fire, and when he told this story, he's told this story for years. The last time he told the story, though, the Stars and Stripes paper, some veterans who were in that with him, in that group, said, "Wait a minute, not at all. His helicopter was not shot down," and that when that came out. So first of all, here's Brian Williams' apology.
On this broadcast last week, in an effort to honor and thank a veteran who protected me and so many others after a ground fire incident in the desert during the Iraq War invasion, I made a mistake in recalling the events of 12 years ago. It did not take long to hear from some brave men and women in the air crews who were also in that desert. I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following craft. We all landed after the ground fire incident and spent 2 harrowing nights in a sandstorm in the Iraq desert. This was a bungled attempt by me to thank one special veteran, and by extension, our brave military men and women, veterans everywhere, those who have served while I did not. I hope they know they have my greatest respect, and also now my apology.
That is so stretched, right? So, the whole thing was, he says, he made a mistake in recalling. How could you make a mistake? But remember, this is the story that he has told over and over and over again. For example, he told it to David Letterman.
We were in some helicopters. What we didn't know was we were north of the invasion. We were the northernmost Americans in Iraq. We were going to drop some bridge portions across the Euphrates so the 3rd Infantry could cross on them. 2 of our 4 helicopters were hit by ground fire, including the one I was in. No kidding. RPG and AK-47.
Yeah. So, I mean, sounds pretty dramatic, right? It really does. And Brian Williams said it was more like a holy crap moment. But, this is... as some people then have pointed out, and of course, when you're on television, you're an anchor just like me. Every commentary that I've done, every parting shot I've done, I've been doing commentary for years in L.A. and now here. It's all out there somewhere. People can go back and look at every word that I said and every word that Brian Williams said. For example, maybe it's not the first time he embellished. When he talked about when he really... as an anchor, grew as an anchor, right? Matured as an anchor, was, he said, in Hurricane Katrina, when he's in his hotel room in the French Quarter, and...
When you look out of your hotel room window in the French Quarter and watch a man float by face down, when you see bodies that you last saw in Banda Aceh, Indonesia, and swore to yourself that you would never see in your country, I beat that storm.
Yep. The problem with that is there was no flooding in the French Quarter. Now, maybe he saw a body float by somewhere else. Maybe his hotel was not in the French Quarter, but there was no flooding in the French Quarter.
Another case of him misremembering things?
Another case of misremembering. So now, I got to tell you, the sharp knives are out. Howie Kurtz yesterday from the media buzz on Fox News said, quote, the admission raises serious questions about his credibility in a business that values that quality, credibility, above all else. Yesterday morning on CNN's New Day, Chris Cuomo said attributing the lie to the fog of war was not acceptable. He predicted the internet would eat him alive.
Oh, they did.
Yes, and they did. Rem Reeder on USA Today, is a media columnist there, says, quote, "It's hard to see how Williams gets past this and how he survives as the face of NBC News." And the New York Times this morning says, "What's clear is the trustworthiness of one of America's best known and most revered TV journalists has been damaged. And the moral authority of the nightly network news has been dealt another blow." Yeah. This is really serious stuff. And I got to tell you, of the three, right, I do believe that Brian Williams is the best anchor. I've always said that. But I think this damages his credibility to the point where I don't know how he can survive, and I'm not sure he should. Reportedly, even Tom Brokaw, his successor, predecessor, as the anchor of Nightly News, is telling people, and he basically handpicked Brian Williams. Mm-hmm. He's telling people, Brian's got to go. Brian's got to go. So the question is, knowing that he told this big, fat lie for years, unnecessarily. I mean,
right? Why? Why tell that lie?
By the way, just being there in that situation and spending 3 nights until they rescue you in the desert.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, just tell the story. And the same with Katrina. You were there. He saw the bodies. I'm sure he saw the bodies. Did he see one float by his hotel in the French Quarter?
To see a no. So the fact that he told this lie for so long and stuck to it until somebody busted him, I don't see how he can stay in that anchor chair. What do you say? 866-55-PRESS. Like him or not, revere him or not, can he survive? Should he survive? 866-55-77-377.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university. And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour. By the way, in that New York Times story this morning, it points out that for years, some members of the military have been hearing Brian Williams tell the story. I've really been fuming, saying, my God, he's telling this lie, and he just gets away with it. And apparently also over the years, his embellishment has gotten, well, more and more embellished. Like at first he said he was on this mission, and a Chinook helicopter ahead of us was almost blown out of the sky. Within a year or so, he was on that helicopter that almost got blown. So it's just sort of like fishing when the one that got away, you keep the fish gets bigger and bigger. Peter.
Yeah, we are on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. If you want to join in the conversation, feel free to go and comment there. Kathy Miller says, no, if we use those standards for journalists, every reporter at Fox News would have to be fired.
Well, that wouldn't be bad.
That wouldn't be such a bad thing,
Yeah,
I guess.
right. But you might say, the other side of that, if we bitch and complain about the lies that Fox tells them that they're not a real network, then are you going to accept that from NBC? Out in Claremore, Oklahoma. Hi, Cliff. What do you think?
Well, I think Brian Williams allowed his ego to get the best of him, and
Totally.
I think it should be up to the network to decide whether he should go or not. Quite frankly, Bill O'Reilly, or Bill O'Reilly is what I like to call him, says a lot of things that just seem to be the most downright stupid things that anybody could ever say, and yet, because it's Fox News, nobody calls his...
But I think we expect more out of NBC than we do out of Fox News, Cliff. I agree. And by the way, nobody confuses Bill O'Reilly with a news anchor. He's strictly
This is the
commentator.
Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say done, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
All right, here we are at 34 minutes now after the hour. Talking about Brian Williams. He is in hot water. He thought a little apology on the news, spinning it to how much he appreciates the great work of our men and women in uniform, and that's what it's all about. And he's just sorry that he misremembered one little incident. Others have pointed out, no, this is not a case of misremembering. This is a case of just not telling the truth. And look, what is it when you watched Walter Cronkite, or when you watch today Bob Schieffer, or when you watch Scott Pelley, David Muir. David Muir on. I don't watch him because I don't like him. David Muir on ABC, or Diane Sawyer. I mean, what is it? Trust. Right. I mean, you trust them to tell you the news.
Think of every
the anchor.
News promo you've seen, from local news all the way up to national.
Wolf Blitzer.
The name you can trust. The voice you trust. The news you trust.
It's all built about trust and credibility. can you continue to trust Brian Williams when you know he's been telling this whopper for that long? And can NBC survive with him in the anchor chair? Or should they just make a statement saying, hey, wait a minute, yeah, we love you. You've done a good job for us, but we can't accept this.
We're on Twitter at BP Show. We got a couple of great comments there if you want to check it out. Ramona Lewis says, absolutely not. Brian Williams should exit stage left. He should not keep his job. And Margaret Colvin, I think this is kind of sums up how I feel about it. Brian was so good reporting from the Superdome during Katrina, but this is so offensive, I don't know how he survives.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Brian Williams is great.
He's always been my favorite anchor.
Me too.
No, seriously, he's the best in delivering the news, and when he goes out on the field reporting,
wonderful.
He's done some incredible reporting.
Yeah, and you can't take that away from him.
I hate to see his career end like this, but I think this is the end of his career.
Yeah.
Kevin is up in Stratford, Connecticut. Hi, Kevin.
Good morning, Bill.
Hi. Thanks for your call. What do you think?
Well, the last caller sort of stole some of my thunder, but I want to add to that and say that I have not been a person that trusts much of the corporate media. I know it's portrayed by the right as the left-wing media, but let's face it, they're all owned by corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
My trust hasn't been there for quite some time. So, and I'll just say that it's a shame that this happened because he was an enjoyable host, but I think he's going to probably go.
But so even among the corporate media, you never trusted Brian Williams, or was he sort of maybe the one in the corporate media that you could a little bit?
A little more than others. I mean,
Yeah.
I trust Rachel. I trust, some of my other news sources. But I don't know about most of these talking heads. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lost my trust.
No, I got you, Kevin. And you're wise to feel that way, by the way. But no matter what you think about the corporate media, I think Brian Williams, and Kevin admitted that too, stood out. Right? He really did. Which is why this is such a shocker.
Sucks.
Yeah,
it really sucks.
I mean, somebody mentioned Bill O'Reilly before. If we found out that Bill O'Reilly told a big fat lie, and how about Sean Hannity?
Sure.
I mean, Sean Hannity, the way he embraces these killers, like George Zimmerman, right?
Yeah.
Who's the last one that he embraced? I forget now. That some character, right? That a total disgrace. Oh, I know. Darren Wilson. Darren Wilson, the cop out in Ferguson.
Yeah, Darren Wilson,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you expect it of those guys. You don't expect it of Brian Williams. Sherry in Chicago. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, good morning.
Hey.
Gotta disagree with you on this one. He's a good anchor, no doubt about
Absolutely.
it. And nobody walks on water. We tend to forget that. We have Bush walking around, Cheney walking around after the crap that they did in Iraq. I think Hillary made some type of embellishments. Snafu a few years ago, got a slap on the wrist, and she's walking around. So he's in a glass house now. If it happens again, then they'll break the glass and show him the way out. But he should not be fired.
Well, you remind us, Sherry, about Hillary. That was when there was a story about her landing in Bosnia, and it was that they were under fire and they had to run to this building to escape the fire, and then the video came out and it just showed them basically walking from their plane to the building, like on a Sunday picnic almost, right? Yeah. All right, so you give them another shot, Sherry. There's a little compassion here, a little mercy among some of our listeners.
And I can hear that, right? Like,
yeah.
I'll at least listen to that argument.
Yeah,
But I think that when you've got a business that's built on what they've built TV news on, you can't get away with that.
Now, the only thing I would put a little addendum to what Sherry is saying. If that's what's going to happen, that I think Brian Williams has to speak again.
Yeah.
And then I think he has to say,
no,
I didn't just remember,
Yeah. Misremembering that you were shot down while you were in a helicopter?
No.
Especially with PTSD problems,
right?
It doesn't really bode well.
I misremember how many points I scored in a high school basketball game, right? I remember scoring 25 points. The reality is I probably scored 8. That's misremembering. If you get shot down in a helicopter in Iraq, you remember that. Sorry. You remember that.
I'm just, I'm sort of like feeling sorry for myself because I was only in a war zone once.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was in Croatia, in Vukovar, when during the Croatian War, when the Serbs bombed it, and I got the hell out of there fast. Damn it, when I came back, I should have said I was shot at.
You're shot down. Yeah,
Wow.
why not? Why not?
I missed my
Ryan
chance.
Williams getting away with it. You had a relatively peaceful trip, it sounds like.
It wasn't peaceful, I'll tell you that. It was pretty scary. Alan is in New Orleans. Hello, Alan.
Hello, this is Howard Allen. I live in just north of the French Quarter. I was here through the whole Katrina. I stayed.
Oh, you did. Now, so was there flooding in the French Quarter?
No. There was a little bit of water in the gutters
Yeah.
North Rampart, and that was it. There was only one body found. It was down by the river. It was in the paper. They showed where all the bodies were found around the city. There was only one in the French Quarter and one up here in Bloomberg, Maryland. That was after the storm. They found the body.
That's what I thought was the case, Alan, for sure.
I remember I was reading a piece about this yesterday, and they said that for the science of this, right, if you were to have a human body actually float, you're looking at about 18 inches of water, which we know the French Quarter did not get. There were plenty of areas around New Orleans that did get that, but the French Quarter did not. So did he see a body floating in the water? I'm sure he probably did if he was down there. Not in the French Quarter, though. Mm-hmm. Not from his hotel window, as he says.
Not at all. No. Quickly, before we're down Louisiana. Yeah. Peter, you're heading for New Orleans pretty soon, huh?
Yeah,
I love New Orleans.
Jazz
Shreveport. How about Shreveport? You ever been there? Here's Lois from Shreveport, Louisiana. Hey, Lois.
Hey, Bill. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think Brian Williams should get a recall for every time he told that lie. Also, Joe Scarborough should get a year off for every week he tell a lie.
I like that. I like that mentality. That's pretty good.
Maybe we set a new standard here, indeed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how about it? All right. Susan Paige is standing by. We'll get her take on a fellow journalist when we come back, as well as other items in the news of the day. Susan Paige, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today, coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
13 minutes now before the top of the hour. We decided this morning we're not going to call it Friday anymore. We're going to call it Susan Paige Day.
That's right.
Yeah. So we like it. All day long. Hello, Susan.
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
Susan Paige, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today and co-host of Capital Download on WUSA 9 every Sunday morning at 8:30.
We did it the first time last Sunday. We're going to do it again this Sunday.
Oh, my God. 2 Sunday. They brought you back for a second week in a row?
You know how, as a broadcaster with your own show, you know how hard that can be to keep a show going.
Oh, totally. Boy, do I know. I know. Yeah. And you always wonder when you do one if you're going to get another one. So.
And you're also thinking, is anyone out there tuned in?
Oh,
I
yeah.
hope so.
They are. Absolutely. Now, as a fellow broadcaster, I have to ask you, Susan, your take on our friend Brian Williams.
Oh, man. My jaw dropped when I heard this. I was stunned. And, you know, my initial reaction was, can a journalist survive a furor like this? And we have on our front page today a column by Rim Ryder.
I quoted him this morning. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, you know, people survive things. President Clinton survived impeachment. We should remember that. But it's definitely one of those stories that I just cannot believe happened. A journalist who has so much respect in so many ways.
Yeah. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but Rim Ryder on your front page today says it's hard to see how Williams gets past this and how he survives as the face of NBC News. You know, if it were a Bill O'Reilly, I mean, everybody would say, yeah, well, it's Fox, right? You know, but Brian Williams, and I've always said, and I watch them all, that I think he's the best of the three networks.
Well, he definitely has. He's got. I don't know him personally. He's got a great persona on the air. We know that he's a volunteer firefighter, and he's. There's a lot of good things you feel about Brian Williams. The trouble is, at the end of the day, as a journalist, what do you have? What's your coin? It's your credibility as a truth teller, as somebody people can trust.
Trust is the word.
So
right?
that's what makes this so hard.
Yeah. I think he's going to have to either give a better explanation. I mean, if he's going to stay on the job, give a better explanation. Then I just misremembered it. You know.
Well, you know, as someone he's someone who has covered so many politicians who have gotten into trouble and had to dig themselves out. I was surprised that his initial apology and explanation wasn't more understandable.
Right.
Because we know the people who survive things like this are people who come out and say, I made a mistake. I'm very sorry. It will never happen again. Those are the ingredients to surviving a scandal like this.
Yeah, and I think he's going to have to do that if he were to survive. And I'm sure, there's a big struggle inside of NBC deciding what to do about it now. I think we talked last week a little bit about the Bibi Netanyahu flap here on the Hill. It didn't get any better this week, did it?
It's the worst. This is the biggest crisis in relations with a big ally that I can remember in my 105 years in Washington. We have no closer ally than Israel, and we are at such odds with them on this. Do you think Democrats should go to the speech?
No. And we've been asking every Democrat who comes in this week whether or not they're going, and there are several Nobody has told us on the record they're not going.
Yes.
But they have told us on the record they know people who are not going.
Yeah.
The closest is that from Kentucky.
John Yarmouth.
John Yarmouth said he's inclined not to go. There's certainly this discussion now among the Democrats, from Nancy Pelosi on down.
And this has to be of great concern to people in Israel as well. I mean,
Yes.
Israel's our ally. We're their ally. We're a great protector of Israel. The fact that our two leaders clearly do not get along is bad news for them too.
And the people that I've talked to in the American Jewish community are furious at Netanyahu for doing this, right? And really making our relations with Israel a political football.
And part of it is personal. You know, that Netanyahu practically campaigned for Mitt Romney.
Mm-hmm.
But part of it is policy, and that's and that leads to what could be the biggest policy divide at all, which would be an attack on Iran.
Yes. Now, tell us about Reggie Love. I used to enjoy Reggie when he was at the White House. He and Obama had a great relationship. What's he doing? And tell us.
So he's written a book about his 5 years as Obama's body man, which is not exactly a tell-all book because he's got great affection for President Obama. And I'll tell you, this is the interview that we air on Capitol Download this week, in which I ask him if Obama is a secret smoker.
Ooh, good question. And
to know the answer to that, we've agreed to hold it. But I tell you, it's 8:30 Sunday morning.
8:30 Sunday morning.
I asked him that. Also, he had tattooed on his biceps, on one bicep 365, and on the other bicep 332. Do you know what those tattoos mean?
No, 360. I'd have to.
365 and 332. Those are the number of electoral votes President Obama got.
No.
They're tattooed on his biceps. I asked if we could see them. He rolled up his sleeves and showed them to us.
Oh, really?
That's a pretty cool.
So he got
idea.
365, one
on one, and 332 on the other.
No kidding.
He got the first one after the first election, and he got the second one, obviously, after the second one.
Boy, you talk about loyalty, huh?
Man, you bet. You'd do that for me, right?
Absolutely, Susan.
I hope President Obama gets those tattoos. That's awesome.
Well, for all we know, he has them.
That's right.
That's true. When you are on our show 335 days, Fridays, I'll get that tattoo for you, Susan. Oh, man. So you don't even get your weekends off anymore. What a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, well, it's the love of the news.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I know. I've been addicted to it all my life. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, Susan, have a great show Sunday. Capitol Download Sunday at 8:30 on WUSA 9. And you can, of course, stream it online. And we'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, thanks, Phil. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you. Susan Paige, Washington Bureau Chief, USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Jonathan Allen from Bloomberg News at the top of the next hour about Hillary Clinton. Peter.
Sometimes, Bill, the jokes just write themselves.
I know.
Cabazon, California. Cabazon, California. I'm sure you'll correct me on that.
No, it's Cabazon, California.
Cabazon, California. Yeah. A big rig was carrying thousands of pounds of hot sauce and salsa. It jackknifed on Interstate 10, spilling salsa and hot sauce all over the highway. Of course, you know who showed up to clean it up? The California Highway Patrol. Chips and salsa.
Oh, yeah.
On Interstate 10.
Oh,
to clean up the mess.
There's a great Indian casino there in Cabazon, which I've been to many times. The Cabazon band of Indians have a big casino there, so I'll bet you people were pouring out of the casino to get some salsa. Yeah, indeed. We'll talk Hillary Clinton at the top of the next hour with Jonathan Allen. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
February 5, the Bill Press Show, starting up here on the East Coast and booming out to you all across this great land of ours from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Here we are with you on Free Speech TV nationwide, every corner, Craig and corner of this country, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Check it out. Check it out. Yes, trouble on Capitol Hill yesterday. Still a lot of trouble brewing over Prime Minister Netanyahu's scheduled speech before a joint session of Congress on March 3rd, where he has been invited by John Boehner to attack President Obama. He has accepted. Democrats are furious. The Israeli ambassador came up to Capitol Hill yesterday with an official of the Israeli government to try to smooth things over with Democrats, and they ended up just making it worse because they tried to pretend that was all John Boehner's fault, that they had nothing to do with it, when everybody knows it was Israeli ambassador Ron Dermer who organized this little political caper, and Democrats basically threw them off the hill yesterday for trying to lie to them. And then they scheduled a meeting in John Boehner's office and invited the Deputy Majority Leader Steny Hoyer without inviting Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Hoyer was furious about that, and he stormed out of the meeting because they didn't invite the leader, Pelosi. It is bad news. Netanyahu ought to cancel this speech. Disturbing news. In the New York Times this morning that officials of Saudi Arabia may, in fact, have been involved in early funding of al-Qaeda. And NBC's Brian Williams apologizes. He's got egg all over his face, had to apologize for misstating the fact that he had been on a helicopter that was shot down in Iraq when, in fact, he arrived on a later helicopter. All kinds of stuff going on this morning to talk about, and you're going to want to give us a call about at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
Here we go on a Friday. How about it? Our favorite day of the week. And this is Friday, February 6th. If you're keeping track, this is the Bill Press Show. You're in the right place for all the news of the day here on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV, our worldwide video stream. Good to see you. Again, this is a place to be if you want to know what's going on here in Washington, D.C., around the country, or around the globe. We've got it covered. We'll tell you what's going on, and then we want to hear from you about what you think about it, what it all means to you. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. That's how you reach us on the phone. And, of course, you can send us your comments throughout the show on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Oh, my God. Brian Williams, is he in hot water? That apology he made the other night didn't really cut it. People are saying you don't just misremember whether you were in a helicopter that was shot down. He was not. He said he was. He apologized. Some people are saying this wasn't a case, again, of misremembering. This was a case of just lying to the American people. And more voices are asking, how can he remain as the anchor of NBC News when you've got to trust the anchor to tell the truth? Can we trust Brian Williams any longer? President Obama today on the road again, out to Indianapolis to talk economy, to talk jobs, to get back on that focus of how to help the middle class. And Senate Democrats were successful yesterday in blocking the bill that passed the House, which would cut off all funding for the Department of Homeland Security and shut down the Department of Homeland Security, putting this nation at risk only because Republicans are still whining about President Obama's executive order on the Dreamers, on immigration. Senate Democrats shot that bill down, so Republicans have to go back to the drawing board. Again, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS and saddle up for this morning's program.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The Pope is coming. The Pope is coming. September 24. Yes, the Pope invited to address a joint session of Congress. And this time, John Boehner coordinated things with the White House, apparently. No big flap on that. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday, February 6th. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. It is the Bill Press Show. We are beaming out to you from Washington, D.C. in our studio on Capitol Hill, all across the country, coast to coast, on your local progressive talk radio station, and on Free Speech TV. And as if that's not enough, we are worldwide on our video stream. Anywhere you have an electronic device, you can be with us, and we thank you for joining us at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. A lot of talk these days about what's happening on the Republican side with some 20 candidates saying that they are interested in running for president, maybe, in 2016. What's happening on the Democratic side? It just seems to be Hillary Clinton's show. You may remember the great book we talked about, HRC, by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. It is now out in paperback, hot off the press in paperback. Still that same great cover, HRC, but now it has New York Times bestseller at the top of it. Jonathan Allen, co-author, in studio with us this morning. Hey, Jonathan, good to see you.
It's fantastic to be here.
Bloomberg News now. When you started writing this, you were somewhere else, but anyway.
Bloomberg forever.
Bloomberg forever, right. So thanks so much for coming in today.
Totally my pleasure.
Look forward to getting all the update, and you join our team here, of course, led by Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey.
Hey, good morning.
Yes. Elisa.
Peter's moved into the studio.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
He used to be behind the glass.
Yeah.
Caged a little bit like Elisa.
Yeah.
It's my whole big plan for takeover, John.
Get over the glass.
I get very nervous because he gets closer and closer to this chair.
That's right. I'm going to lock you out of here one day.
You already tried that. Alicia Cruz, there to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Keep those fingers working, lots of calls to keep Alicia awake in the morning, right? That's what we like. And Cyprian Bolding, we're looking at you. You're looking at us. Thanks to Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. Jonathan, President Obama has said many times, if you Republicans don't like the Affordable Care Act, or if you don't like Obamacare, come up with your own plan, right? Come up with an alternative, which they haven't yet until now. They just have. Conan O'Brien announced it last night.
Republicans in Congress have unveiled a new alternative to Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah, it's called dying.
It's pretty rough.
Yeah, okay.
That's kind of a stolen idea from Congressman Alan Grayson.
Exactly.
Who said on the House floor in 2009, I believe Republicans want you to die quickly.
Right. No. I was just trying to remember who. I knew I was going to mention that. There was somebody on the floor who said that. That's right. It was Alan Grayson. Good for you. Right.
And at the time, it was so controversial that some of the members of the Democratic leadership, Steny Hoyer, went back and said, Grayson, you got to go apologize. So we went out to the floor and he said, apologize. I should have said something different, and then basically repeated the point.
Yeah, no, I remember that. That's
Here
right.
he is, late night comic. Oh, yeah. If only he knew, right? Yeah.
Conan O'Brien should run for Congress in Florida.
Listen, he'd be less of a clown than some of the people that are already there.
And less influential.
Yeah. Jonathan Allen here for the first half hour. Mark Leibovich from the Washington Post joins us a little bit later. In the next hour, Bob Cusack from The Hill here as editor-in-chief, and Hadas Gold, media reporter for Politico. Well, all your friends coming in today.
I was going to say, I like everyone that you just mentioned. Can I hang out? Can we get,
sure.
Can we get a six-pack?
We have one.
Send some to the listeners on the West Coast.
We'll send you down the street for donuts.
Yeah, right.
District donuts is what it is. All right.
I don't really need any donuts. Well, thank you, though.
We'll get right into it with Jonathan Allen, but first, Peter, the big story
This
today
is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. We've talked about how much money Colorado has made off of the sale of marijuana.
Oh, my man.
They are
Gold
expected
mine.
to pull in, the final numbers aren't quite in for last year, but $50 million in recreational pot taxes are what they expect. $50 million.
Incredible.
Now, here's the deal. There's a weird law in the state constitution in Colorado that limits how much tax money the state can take in before it has to give some back to the residents.
I love it.
So the residents are going to actually end up making like a lot of money. They could have to distribute like $20 million out of that $50 million back to the residents. Now, the whole idea here was this money was going to go to schools and things like that. And so the politicians in Colorado say, well, we want to have all of that money to put it into the schools and things. So...
No.
Pot lotto. Just smoke your weed, sit on the couch, wait for your lotto number to come in. Your lotto ticket's bought with your pot proceeds. The state gives the $20 million to whoever has the winning thing, and if they show up, they get to claim it.
If they show up.
This is like they pay you to get high.
Paying you to get high.
Yeah.
Paying you to get high.
Colorado.
It hasn't been quite a week yet since the Seattle Seahawks lost to the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. And Matt Lauer of the Today Show sat down with head coach of the Seahawks, Pete Carroll, yesterday, who admits he's having trouble sleeping. He says he can't sleep after that last play. He still maintains that last play call was his. It was a play he drew up. He called that play to pass on second and half a yard. And he says he can't sleep. He says hopefully he figures out how he can get some sleep.
I'm glad he's taken the blame for it.
Yeah. He didn't blame the Patriots locker room assistant, so that's good.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you might not know this, but maybe the hottest...
Didn't blame the quarterback either. I mean, he
totally owned up to it. He didn't say it was a bad pass. He just said this was all mine. And you might not know this, Bill, but one of the hottest party spots in the world right now
is Washington, D.C.
Baghdad. Yesterday, they lifted the ban lifted a curfew that's been in place since the Americans put it in 2003. 12 years there's been a curfew in Baghdad. They lifted it yesterday. You can now stay out after dark in Baghdad. So what the hell? Go out.
Yeah, men only.
Men only. Where we can't drive. All that stuff. But, hey.
I think they're allowed to drive, but they're not allowed out without, all the...
But they can go party after dark?
You party with women in a burqa? Really? I guess.
Good luck.
Maybe we don't want to go there. All right, 13 minutes after the hour now. So, Jonathan, before we get to Hillary, I have to ask you, as a fellow journalist, Brian Williams, can he survive?
Yeah, Brian Williams can survive, but most of us couldn't. And I say that because his reputation is so sterling. I say that because he has credibility with so many people that I think he can survive. I've heard some advice on your show earlier today from Susan Paige, I believe.
Yeah.
That I think is absolutely right. You own up to it. You say, I'm sorry, and you try to move on, keep your head down. I think, there's no good explanation for it. It's not an embellishment in his head or, this is pretty clearly something that didn't happen. It's unfortunate, and for him, it's unfortunate that the story he told that's untrue, that is self-aggrandizing, happens to be on national television because that's where he works.
Right.
A lot of people stand around the water cooler pretending they did things they didn't do or lie on resumes or whatever, and it's not a national issue. His credibility stand for a while, but I think if he puts his head down, he should be able to survive.
I agree with you. I think I'm a big fan of his, always have been. I think he can survive, but I think he has to own up to it more than he has. And that's what Susan was saying.
If he does that, I think people get tired of it. They'll move on. But then there's the issue of the ratings, right? If that takes a hit, that's a whole other story. But in terms of just beating this, I think he can.
Now, so on the subject of HRC, Jon Stewart raised an interesting question last night. I don't know whether you saw it, about the fact that why is it that she's out there all by herself? Let's listen up.
Hillary Clinton is seems to be in a tight race with Senator Nobody and Governor Bupkis. Not a single Democrat wants to pursue the nomination. on the off chance Hillary may throw her hat in the ring. What's so scary about this woman's hat?
Why is she out there all alone?
I mean, at the danger and
or
risk
do you agree that she is?
She is out there all alone. I mean, there are other... Look, the degree of your seriousness as a candidate in the Democratic field is in direct inverse proportion to your willingness to run against Hillary Clinton at this point. I hate to plug the book. I think one of the reasons...
No, you're here to plug the book. We want you to plug the book.
I think one of the...
I love the book.
I think one of the reasons is a motif, if you will, through the book that about Bill Clinton's revenge that he's taken out on Democrats that opposed her in 2008. I don't think anybody wants to be on the wrong side of Hillary should she become president. I think that has something to do with it. I also think that people can do pretty simple calculations. She's going to raise a lot of money. She's got a lot of support within the Democratic Party. Barack Obama's ability to beat her was, I think, a function of basically combining the white liberal base with the African-American base. Nobody else out there can do that with another minority group. She's great with Hispanics. The African-American community, short of Barack Obama on the ticket, I think would have been with her in 2008. So trying to put that coalition together, I think, is next to impossible.
But nobody else can really do that. But by the way, I do.
I'm sorry, progressive, I should say.
What you said about the revenge is true. I have. Let me just say, I've been to a meeting with somebody else who was considering running, and I'm not going to go on name because I'm not in a position to do that. But I know that there were people invited to that meeting who said, just to have a discussion, right? Would not even show up to have a discussion because they were afraid of what might happen. What to them from the Clintons if they knew that they even had a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, they'd suddenly have a primary opponent who would be heavily funded by Clinton donors, and they wouldn't have their job anymore.
Or they wouldn't.
Or at least they're worried about it.
Or they wouldn't have a consulting contract, or they wouldn't have a job, or whatever. Yeah, no, I mean it's real, the fear of that machine. So now the word is that since,
and by the way, for Democrats, should she become president of the United States, maybe they'd like to instill some of that fear on the other side.
Right. Good point.
I mean, that's something President Obama has lacked, I think, in his presidency, is the ability to really rattle the other side, to make them worry that he's going to win public opinion over or put them in a box. So that's it's something to consider.
Now, reportedly, and maybe you can confirm or not, she's saying, well, there's nobody else around. What's the hurry? Why do I have to be in a hurry to announce it? I can take my own sweet time. We thought she was going to announce in April. Now, reportedly, they're saying maybe July. What's going on?
Well, I think what you have here is multiple camps within Clinton world, and all the camps in Clinton world talk to the press. So there are people who would like to see her move in April. There are people who would like to see her move in July, and as a result, one gets out there and says, we think it'll be April, and then the other one goes, oh, no, she's going to wait till July. I wrote a story in November for Bloomberg, and basically the gist of it was she's going to wait as long as she feels like she can. For obvious reasons. Why make herself a target? Why put herself in the position of having to answer questions about every sort of fleeting news of the day thing that pops up? Right now, she's able to pick and choose. The Bibi Netanyahu thing right now. I mean, it would be impossible were she a candidate for president to avoid commenting on that.
She hasn't spoken out about that, has she?
I don't believe so, and I wouldn't imagine that she would. Why stick herself in the middle?
But she did speak out about measles on the famous Twitter, which I thought was a great little Twitter. Said it all: science works, Earth is round, sky is blue, vaccines work, protect your kids, grandmothers know best. Boom.
140 characters.
Yeah.
I mean, if she could campaign from an ivory tower and 140 characters a pop, I'm sure she will. But I do think that there's one sort of pressing issue here, and there's, the people that wanted her to announce last year wanted her to announce last year so that consultants could have jobs. Yeah. I mean, there was that. I don't actually think that was really coming from, at that point, really so much coming from inside her camp as much as within the Democratic Party, the David Plouffes of the world, saying, look, hire my buddies that just lost Senate races and whatever. Now, though, she's hiring enough people that you're going to have to pay them somewhere. And if they go onto a super PAC payroll now, that'll look bad later if they go into a campaign payroll. So I think that will end up being a forcing mechanism. The larger the organization grows, the less she can rely on people to not draw paychecks for months and months at a time.
Which means maybe before July.
I think maybe before July.
Right. Okay. And in fact, we saw this week that two top people from the White House, John Podesta and Jennifer Palmieri, are leaving the White House reportedly to become part of the Hillary Clinton campaign. Nobody knows it better than Jonathan Allen here from Bloomberg News. The paperback of HRC, which she co-authored with Amy Parnes from, she's still with The Hill.
The Hill.
With The Hill. Just
The
out
Hill forever.
Yeah, right. We'll put up a link on our website, 86 at BillPressShow.com.
Absolutely.
You can get it, of course, at your local bookstore and on Amazon.com and all those other great book sites. We'll be right back with Jonathan Allen. Any questions or comments? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour. Is this live radio?
We're on the air.
Oh, no
Ay,
kidding.
ay.
Whoa. It is the... I'm just learning this. You know,
Yeah, it's a new thing, I know.
It's a new thing. It's the Bill Press Show on Friday. Jonathan Allen in studio with us, co-author of the book HRC. Very, very well written, well researched, and tells you the whole story of the Clinton machine, led by now Hillary Clinton. Although Bill's not.
She's waxing, he's waning, but like where exactly they are, I'm not sure.
And the new book out now in paperback. Jonathan Allen, let's say hello to Lynn, calling from Chicago on the great WCPT. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, everybody. Listen, before we crown Hillary, you need to know that outside the Beltway, there are hundreds of thousands of people at the grassroots level that are attempting to get Elizabeth Warren to run. And point being, there's going to be a rally at the Water Tower, not Water Tower Place Shopping Center, but the Water Tower Park in Chicago Saturday, 11:30 to 12:30 on the 14th. We love Elizabeth Warren.
All right. Valentine's Day, love Elizabeth Warren at the Water Tower right there on Michigan Avenue. Now, I hope Elizabeth Warren runs, Jonathan, just because I'd like to see, a challenge in the primary and some interesting debates. But Elizabeth Warren says no.
I'd like to see Abraham Lincoln run, but he's not running.
Right. Yeah.
And I say that because Abraham Lincoln was a pretty good president.
Right.
Look, she says she's not running. She says she's really not running. She's not running this time. She's going to serve out her term in the Senate. Of course, you can change your mind. What would make her change her mind is if she thought she could win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's smart enough as a political analyst to look at it and say, I don't think I can win this. Now, maybe that'll change. Maybe Hillary's numbers come down. Maybe Elizabeth Warren's numbers go up. But I think at the moment, she looks at it, it's not a possibility. And she's got a pretty good gig influencing policy and politics from the Senate right now. She became like kind of the Ted Kennedy of the Senate without having to be in the Senate for 30-odd years.
Good point, yeah. All right. So it looks like I know we're just out of time. It looks like right now it's going to be the Hillary show, period. Huh?
On the Democratic side, and then there will be a hell of a fight for the presidency.
All right. If you didn't read the hardcover, get the paperback, HRC. Thank you, Jonathan. Congratulations.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour. Here we go on a Friday, February 6th. So good to see you today, and thank you for joining us. We are in our nation's capital, The Bill Press Show, in our studio in Capitol Hill. Brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox, keeping our federal agencies running day in and day out. Proud to work for America every day. And you can check out their good work at their website, afge.org. Here we go on this Friday. Time to check in with one of our best friends, the author of the great book, This Town. It's got Washington absolutely right on. And the latest book, Tales from the Green Room, from the New York Times, Mark Leibovich. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hi, Bill. Good
Happy New Year. Haven't talked to you in a while.
I know. Can you still wish a Happy New Year in February? But
No, it's banned.
I guess, well,
It's banned.
I sort of have a rule. The first time I talk to people in the New Year.
I think that this is the first time I've talked to you in the New Year. So Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everyone.
All right. Hey, good. Now, Mark, first of all, got to get your take on the big media story of the day. Can Brian Williams survive?
Oh, man. That's a tough one. It might be tough for him. I mean, I don't know how you come back from this. I mean, I can see where...
Pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, if it was just one or two, maybe. But, I mean, apparently there's a whole track record of this, and it's all on tape. And, you know, this could be one of those things that just sticks. I mean, especially if you sort of integrate, you know, your basic dishonesty, which is not what you want in an anchor person. And when you multiply that by the fact that the troops are involved, it was, you know, it's a very serious situation in which people's lives are seriously at risk every day. I mean, risking their lives for their country. And I don't know. It just looks really bad. I don't see this going away anytime soon.
And you must say, I think we could all admit that his attempt at an apology really was not an apology, right? You know?
Yeah, I haven't parsed it. I think. You know, was it one of those "I'm sorry for anyone I offended" kind of things?
Yeah, I misremembered. I think
misremembered. Yeah, I mean, look, apologies are dicey. I mean, I think either you do it full on or you don't. But still, you know, when you have just so many repeated offenses, I mean, it's hard to apologize for that. I mean, again, if it's one thing, if you can dismiss it as a really bad moment, and if you're heartfelt about it, I think that's one thing. But again, when it's happened so many times, you're basically apologizing for getting caught, you know.
Right.
And
it seems to me,
so I don't know.
It's also seems to me a case where, if we're with Bill O'Reilly or Rush Limbaugh or even somebody on the left, I mean, a commentator, a talk show host, right? They'll probably survive, but he's the anchor of the mighty NBC nightly news.
Yeah, I mean, even in the diminished sort of role that network anchors play now. I mean, it's still one that has a notion that credibility is everything. Fairness is everything. Trust is everything, and it might be a quaint notion, but it's still very important. And I think it's certainly paramount to his brand and to what he tries to do. So I think I would think that he's going to have a hard time continuing.
Now, if we're talking about survival of people who've had some bad press this week, can Chris Christie survive? That New York Times story, was that your story? I could totally give you credit for it.
I wish. It was not. I mean, I contributed, I think, a line from a profile I did a few months ago. But no, he's really having a hard time. I mean, for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, the story sort of picked up on a theme that's been out there about him for a while, which is that he really enjoys the high life. He likes, living very, very lavish life on the road, often paid for by his supporters. Mm-hmm. Hanging out with celebrities, going to concerts. I mean, he seems to be living the life of a teenage, kind of fanboy in some ways. And when you kind of contrast that with this apparent seriousness that someone like Jeb Bush seems to be approaching the early months of the campaign with, I mean, it's pretty damning. And I mean, I think he can survive. I mean, it's not like he's up for re-election.
Oh no, right. But I mean, I guess as a serious presidential candidate.
Yeah, I don't think he's off to a lousy start. I'd say that. I mean, I think if he's going to be serious about this, it probably ought to start really soon.
Well, the story, I mean, as you laid out in the story there in the Times, he goes off at a time when Sheldon Adelson has legislation pending in front of the New Jersey legislature, and he goes off on Adelson's plane, to Israel, and he brought like everybody he knows and all of his family members on the plane, and then this weekend paid for by the King of Jordan, who he says is one of his best friends. A freeloader,
It's funny. I mean, he's very starstruck. I mean, I remember asking him about this. I said, look, he loves, I mean, he name drops, he talks about all the people he's hanging out with. I mean, I remember he was mentioning like Bill Parcells and Rex Ryan and Bruce Springsteen. I mean, it's going on. And I said, you really seem to enjoy this. And he unabashedly said, I just want to kind of suck all the juice out of the orange. And I want to just sort of enjoy this while I can. And it's especially a great experience for my family. And there's part of me that says, yeah, okay, that sounds fun. But on the other hand, I mean, where does the leadership, where does your job fall into all this?
I want to suck all the juice out of the orange. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, that's not what he was elected for. And also, when you compare that to a lot of people in New Jersey in this economy are still really hurting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if they weren't, I mean, if I'm a resident of New Jersey, I am really ticked off at this guy. I mean, in addition to, he spent much of 2012 kind of flirting with maybe running for president and sort of enjoying his life as a new sort of celebrity within the Republican Party. He spent a lot of 2013.
The keynote speech, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. He spent a lot of 2014. I mean, dealing with the Bridgegate thing. And also, spending hundreds of days outside of the state campaigning for other governors, was head of the Republican Governors Association, and now if he decides to run for president, which I assume he will, I mean, there's another year, however much longer spent on that. I mean, it's not a lot of time governing New Jersey into that, and New Jersey's had some real problems. I mean, the economy is lagging compared to the rest of the country, and I think he'll have a lot of experience.
And as you point out too, I mean, he's had a kind of off to a rough start. So there's this whole story, and then his sort of ludicrous trip to London to go to a soccer game, as if this was going to burnish his foreign policy credentials, right? In which case, and then he talks out about the measles and steps in it one more time. I thought the smartest thing that he did, Mark, was to take a whole day without talking to any reporters.
That's far be it from me to counsel against anyone not talking to reporters. But I think that, I think he probably did enough damage this week. I mean, in a way, is lucky that he had. There have been other people who kind of stepped in it this week. I mean, beginning with Brian Williams and Aaron Schock and Rand Paul had a vaccine thing. And he had this nasty exchange. I don't know. So he's not alone this week.
No, but I wanted to get to Aaron Schock next because, Aaron Schock says, listen, everybody's got a little bit of money to spend on their offices, and we can spend it any way we want. And, mine just happens to be really lavish. But, God, what are these people thinking?
I don't know. I mean,
have you seen his office, by the way? Have you been to his office?
No, I've not been to his office, but I assume it's probably going to be one of the more visited offices by tourists, starting now. But there was a great, this all kind of started, but there was a great piece in the Washington Post style section by a writer named Ben Terrace, who I don't know what he was going to write about to begin with. I mean, I don't know if he was writing a profile of him, but he was in the waiting room and he was kind of admiring all this, and then the decorator came out and started telling him all these things, and he started taking pictures, and they all started freaking out, and then he kind of made as the centerpiece for his story the communications director. I forgot his name, but he became, I think, Ben something. He became one of the pieces in one of the subjects in the piece, which if you're the communications director you don't want. So he comes up with an idiot, and then a couple days later it's revealed that this communications director has written some pretty racist things on his Facebook page. He had to resign yesterday. All in all, not a good week for the communications director or his boss.
No. And Chuck says he's a Downton Abbey fan, so why shouldn't my office look like Downton Abbey?
Well, although he then said that he's never watched the show. Maybe the decorators are a Downton Abbey fan. I don't know.
All right. And finally, I have to ask, so the Pope coming on September 23rd, what we want to know is, did John Boehner consult with Nancy Pelosi, Arch-Catholic, before inviting the Pope, or is this another...
I don't know. I mean, I think, maybe John Boehner can, invite anyone around the world he wants. He can start his own little kind of speakers bureau, He doesn't have to consult anyone. He's a speaker. So it's sort of an interesting thing, though. I mean, just like you sort of go down to the Dalai Lama. I mean, whoever you want, just bring him in, He doesn't have to consult anyone.
Right.
It's his house.
I like that. I'm the speaker. I can have my speaker's bureau, right?
Yeah, I just have Springsteen to perform. It's sort of an interesting concept, right? I'm the speaker. Let's just sort of rent this place out. You can start charging.
Oh, I love it, yeah. There he is, eyes on Washington, eyes on the world for the New York Times and for all the rest of us, Mark Leibovich. Good work, Mark. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, always good to talk to you. Chief National Correspondent is his real title there for the New York Times. Mark Lovich does great profiles for the New York Magazine, and his profile of Chris Christie, worth going back and checking out again. We will be right back here on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
church needed in this moment in history to stand alongside of these protesters. Truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Bill Press Show brought to you today in part by YP. YP, the largest marketing agency for local businesses in the country today.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Here we go. It's 11 minutes before the top of the hour. In the next hour, Bob Cusack here from The Hill, the editor-in-chief of The Hill, if you please. And we'll be joined by Hadas Gold from Politico, media reporter. And did I mention it's Friday? How about that? Oh, man, we look forward to Fridays for many reasons. Talk to Susan Paige every Friday. We go into the weekend, and we get to look back at our favorite sound bites of the week, our clips of the day. We start the clips of the week. We start at the bottom, work our way back up to the top. So we start with Mitt Romney making the big announcement last Friday.
Number 5.
After putting considerable thought into making another run for president, I've decided it's best to give other leaders in the party the opportunity to become our next nominee.
Surprise, surprise, surprise to us. We thought it was going to go the other way.
How nice of him.
Mitt
What a
says,
nice guy to step aside.
Yeah, step aside for somebody else. Somebody fresh, a fresh face. Like Jeb Bush. We haven't had a Bush for a long while, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I thought so well the last time.
Mike Huckabee says, you know, you got choices in life. You can choose to drink, you can choose to smoke, or you can choose to be a homosexual.
Number 4.
I don't drink alcohol, but gosh, a lot of my friends, maybe most of them do.
Yeah.
You know, I don't use profanity, but believe me, I've got a lot of friends who do. Some people really like classical music and ballet and opera. It's not my cup of tea.
No.
Does he not sound like the most boring person in the world?
What does he like?
I don't cuss.
I don't cuss.
I don't let alcohol
I don't
pass
drink,
these lips.
I don't smoke. I don't know. What does he do, right? Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah.
Get out of here with all your cussing.
Meanwhile, Rand Paul, man, I got to tell you, if he's on your show and you ask him a question that he doesn't like, or you start to interrupt him, Rand Paul, he doesn't stand for it.
Number 3.
Let me finish. Hey, let me finish. Hey, Kelly. Hey,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Quiet. Calm down a bit here, Kelly.
Shh, talking to Kelly Evans on Fox News.
Yeah.
Shh.
Menacing.
Put his finger up to his
But you know, it's a little more polite than Chris Christie, who would just say, "Shut up!
Sit down and shut up!
Sit down and shut up!" Yeah.
You're stupid. What the hell's wrong with you?
Right. So there's two approaches to this, right?
That's a good point, I guess.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Now, President Obama at the Super Bowl giving a little interview with Savannah Guthrie from the Today Show, and she plays a little, after they sampled the honey beer, the mead made from the White House garden, she plays a little word game with him.
Number 2.
Quick game of either or while we're having this beer. Football or basketball?
I'm still a basketball guy, but I love football.
Offense or defense?
Always offense.
Wings or chips or guac?
Now that's tough. I'm going to go chips and guac. I'm a fanatic about guac.
Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden?
Love them both.
I had to try.
Nice try.
That's the only one he didn't really have to pause on. He knew. That's the answer you give.
She was working up to that one.
Oh,
yes, indeed. And finally, we know Tiger Woods is in a slump, and we wondered why. We found out yesterday what's wrong with Tiger.
Number 1.
My glutes are shutting off. Tried to activate my glutes as the best I could. They never stayed activated.
That's a real problem.
Yep. Right. I think that's my problem too. My glutes haven't been activated.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Now, are there glute doctors?
I mean,
Isn't that a proctologist?
Yeah, I hear somebody. You got to practice his twerking. That's what you got to do.
I just want to look. Give us a call 866-55-PRESS or on Twitter at BP Show or Facebook.
I'm scared of what we're going to get now.
Tell us how you can activate your glutes. Okay, what's the best way to activate your glutes?
I want your glutes to get deactivated.
No. That's my problem too.
I've been trying all morning to get my glutes to activate.
Get your glutes activated and let us know how you do it, and we'll come back and tell you what the president's up to today. Getting his glutes activated.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, hour number 3, just coming up ahead of us, and you're not going to want to miss anything. Get it live now on TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV, or watch that third hour by delay on Free Speech TV at 5 p.m. Eastern and 4 Central. Bob Cusack, the executive editor of The Hill, will be here for the entire hour as a friend of Bill. We'll be joined by Hadas Gold, the media reporter for Politico, to talk about Brian Williams and the big lie. Can he last at NBC rather? That's all coming ahead on hour number 3 of the Bill Press Show. Stay with us.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Should I get back?
what do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags
Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Bob Cusack is editor-in-chief of The Hill. He'll be here as a friend of Bill for the entire next hour. We'll be joined by Hadas Gold from Politico. Lots to talk about in the news today. Big third hour coming up. President Obama's got a big day today, too. Gets a briefing this morning at the White House at 10 o'clock, and then he'll take off from the South Lawn on Marine One out to Andrews Air Force Base and on his way to Indianapolis. At Indianapolis, he'll be meeting with, actually, give a little talk with professors and students at the Ivy Tech Community College in Indianapolis, talking about jobs, talking about the economy, talking about his middle-class economics, and then back here to Washington, arriving back at the White House at about 7 o'clock tonight. No briefing today. Eric Schultz, Deputy Press Secretary, will be gagging with reporters. Gagging.
This is the Bill Press Show.
James West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
2 anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
The Pope is coming. The Pope is coming. Yes, September 24. Mark your calendar. John Boehner has done it again. He's invited the Pope this time to speak to a joint session of Congress. But this time he coordinated with the White House. So everybody's happy. Hello, everybody. Great to see you today. Friday, February 6th, the Bill Press Show. Here in our nation's capital, in our studio on Capitol Hill, reaching out to you all across this great land of ours. Thank you for being there. We're here on your local progressive talk radio station. Of course, we're there with you on Free Speech TV and worldwide, wherever you are on this great planet. We are there with you on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. It's been building, and there is so much news to talk about today that we just couldn't get through it on our own. We had to bring in a heavy hitter here, the editor-in-chief of The Hill, the great newspaper covering everything going on here in Washington, D.C., both in the Congress and at the White House. Bob Cusack. Hello, Robert.
Bill, Peter.
How you doing? Nice
Great to be with you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Welcome back. Good to see you.
It's been a while.
You know, this year's off to a pretty lively start, huh?
It is. I mean, you got the new Senate, you've got Boehner, you got the Tea Party going after him. Obama getting a bit of a bump recently.
Yeah. Obama's getting his mojo.
He really is. And he was so restrained last year, had a bad year. I mean,
totally.
Said some really not smart things about I don't have a strategy on ISIS and then was golfing after the beheadings. But he was also constrained because he couldn't do certain things because of the red state Democrats who were running for re-election. Now he's liberated, and it shows.
Yeah, and that's a good word. He's just acting like it feels like he is and acting like he is. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy, team here in place, of course.
Happy Friday.
Yay, happy Friday.
Friday's come. Alicia Cruz, she's there to take your calls. 866-55-PRESS, weigh in. Want to hear from you on the issues of the day. And, of course, if you're looking at us, you wouldn't be able to do so without the good work of our videographer, Cyprian Balding. You talk about the president had a bad year. He's not the only one. Tiger Woods has had a bad year.
Yes.
He actually shot an 82, I think, last week. That's the worst he's ever done. I said, I'd give my right arm to shoot an 82.
Yeah, I'd take an 82.
I'd take it. I'd take a 92. 82, but it's the worst round in his professional golf career.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder whether he's going to be able to not only whether he's going to be able to win a major again, whether he's going to win a tournament again, because he's had injuries, he's had new coaches. There seems to, golf is so mental, and he's not in a good place right now, having to withdraw. And the other thing is that, his short game, if you saw some of the highlights from the 82,
brutal.
It's like me. I'm like,
no, seriously.
Seriously, I'm like, that's Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
And it's bad for golf. Even though you can like or not like Tiger, and basically there are two camps, but when he's in the hunt, it's exciting.
It is.
I still think of Tiger Woods as like a young guy.
Right.
He's not a young guy.
No.
He's getting up there with a bad back and all kinds of problems.
Well, we were wondering what was the real problem here with Tiger. Yesterday, he told us. So you got to feel sorry for the guy, but he has discovered what's wrong with his game. Tiger Woods.
My glutes are shutting off. I tried to activate my glutes as best I could. They never stayed activated.
My glutes are shutting off.
That's your problem, Bill.
I have to activate my glutes.
His glutes activated.
So, Bob, maybe you could tell. We've been wondering all day how you activate your glutes.
Yeah, that's a new one.
And also, what do your glutes have to do with hitting the golf ball?
Maybe you're doing it wrong.
I took golf lessons, and my coach never said anything about my glutes.
And does it help if your glutes are larger?
You hit the ball farther, maybe.
Right, exactly.
Bigger glutes.
He's in a bad place, and his ranking is sinking, and it's just it's kind of sad to see. But you wonder, and people did predict this earlier in his career because he swung so violently that he was going to have health issues and back problems.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. I remember that.
And then he had to change his swing a number of times, and anytime you change your swing, it's going to get in your head.
I'll tell you, I haven't played in a while, but the next time I play, I'm going to know now. Activate your glutes first. All right. Bob Cusack here with us for the entire hour as a friend of Bill, and we'll be joined by Hadas Gold from Politico at the half. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Congratulations to Seattle Seahawk cornerback Richard Sherman. His girlfriend gave birth to a little baby boy yesterday. His girlfriend, Ashley Moss. Remember, there was some concern over whether or not the baby was going to come on the day of the Super Bowl. He might not play, but he said, I'm going to play. Baby held off, and Richard Sherman tweeted yesterday, my son sure does know how to make an entrance. 2-5-15. Is it a coincidence? Or is he just that clever? Either way, I'm ecstatic. The 2-5, the February 5th, the date. But, of course, that is also Richard Sherman's jersey number 25. So, congratulations, little baby boy, Raiden Sherman, yesterday. Raiden, R-A-Y-D-E-N.
Never heard of that name before.
Yeah.
I wonder where that comes from.
Yeah.
He's going to be Ken's father, I imagine.
Oh, I can imagine. Holy cow. Holy cow. In Alabama, Don Watson is the night manager for the Prattville Walmart, and he saw someone shoplifting. Had a buggy filled with merchandise, trying to get out the back door, so he ran after him. He pinned the man to the ground. The man punched him in the face. Security guards from the apartment complex across the street saw this, came over, detained the man until the police showed up. Good job, right? Good job for Don Watson. Walmart fired Don Watson because they have a policy not to go after shoplifters.
Oh.
They say if you see a shoplifter, let them go. They say it's because of insurance reasons. If you go after them and you get punched or stabbed or shot, they'd rather not deal with that. They'd rather have you stay and be safe. But he was fired from his job because he stopped a shoplifter.
Oh, jeez.
Putting the zero back in hero.
Can't get it right. You know?
I know. What a mess. What a mess. And I don't know if you knew this, but there's been a DNA sequencing project going on in the New York City subway. It's called the Patho Map Project. And they're taking samples from turnstiles, benches, keypads at 466 different subway stations around New York City. And they've published some of the results.
I don't want to know the answer to this.
I'll spare you some of the gross stuff, but Gizmodo reports that half of the DNA on the subway matches no known organism.
No way.
No known organism?
Nothing. They can't pin it on anything. They said that there are several reasons why that could be. That there might be cross-contamination of different things and viruses, and over the time things have decayed and didn't keep up. But you could also say that New York is really unique. And
what is Sleek Stack living down there?
You know, this is getting personal. Carol and I are leaving for New York City.
I saved this just for you.
Right after the show today.
Yeah.
And we always get off at Penn Station and then take the subway. Maybe we'll take a cab today.
I wouldn't take the subway, Jack.
14 minutes to the hour.
I'm sure the cabs are much better, though.
Yeah. True. So, Bob, I'm dying to get your take on Brian Williams, but I'm going to exercise a little restraint here because Hadas Gold is joining us at the half hour, and we'll talk that half hour about Brian Williams and what ought to happen. So let's start with some of the other news of the day. Yesterday, the Senate Democrats, sort of borrowing a page from Republicans, I guess, blocked the bill that would have shut down the funding for the Department of Homeland Security.
Yes.
I mean, can the Republicans really, do they really want to shut down this Department of Homeland Security?
This is a disaster for Republicans. I mean, it's kind of like the Romney third bid. It would have not ended well, and this will not end well for Republicans. And Susan Collins had a compromise and said, okay, well, how about we not take away the 2012 executive actions on the Dreamers, but we'll take away the 2014 action. And Democrats are kind of like, are you kidding me? Like, we have the leverage in this.
Yeah.
You're going to get blamed for any shutdown. So Republicans are now kind of debating we're headed for a clean funding bill that will pass with mostly Democrats. And the question is, do we wait until right up against the deadline? Or, as some Republicans are saying privately, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get it over with. We don't have the leverage. We can't do anything.
What, February 27th? 27th, yeah.
And
right.
in President's Day week, they're not here. So the clock is ticking. Maybe they could get a concession here or there, maybe a little tiny thing on border security. But overall, the president is going to win. He's insisting on a clean funding bill. And Republicans in the House may be jammed by the Senate, because I think Mitch McConnell, who has said there's not going to be no government shutdown, so he's going to craft a deal, and it's going to be up to Boehner whether he'll allow a vote on it.
And, Speaker Boehner yesterday said, we've done our job, and now the Senate's just got to take care of it, right?
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Well, I mean, now,
So let's have another shutdown if that's what they want. And how can they? They don't.
We've already seen House conservatives criticizing not Harry Reid, which they did for years, but Mitch McConnell. And because McConnell acknowledged they didn't have the votes, and they don't have the votes.
No.
They didn't even pull off one Democrat. So that's where they're stuck here. The Republican Congress, especially in the House, and John Boehner acknowledges, they've gotten off to some stumbles. The economy is doing better. That's why Obama's numbers are up. So it's been a pretty good start after a terrible election for Democrats. Who would have thought that this president would be around 50 and actually gaining momentum?
But the idea, if they were saying, okay, we're going to shut down EPA, or we're going to shut down the Department of Education, right? Or we're going to whatever, right? But to shut down the Department of Homeland Security, especially after Paris and all of this, is just insane.
Yeah, especially in the wake of ISIS. I mean, the other thing, too, is that, in any government shutdown, like we had one in 2013, Obama can label essential employees. So what Republicans are even trying to do and shut down a department they don't like. They think it's too bureaucratic. But still, Obama has the power to say, well, you're essential and you must stay on. So it's even by Washington standards, this debate is kind of silly.
The silliest I've heard is now some people who are still defending this policy, or this the Republican proposal, say, well, they won't be shut down. They'll still be working. They just won't get paid.
Yes.
So our national security will really not be harmed.
I don't think that's a winning argument. I don't know.
Tell the Border Patrol that, right? Tell the Coast Guard that, right? Yeah, you're going to be out there doing your job with all the energy that you always did. We're just not going to pay you.
Yeah, and I think that, this is something that McConnell didn't want to deal with. He wanted to fund the whole government, but the Republicans at the end of last year were like, no, we must stop Obama. So then the Republicans said, okay, well, let's deal with this after the election. We'll deal with that headache then. It's here now. And I tell you, the conservatives who tried to oust Boehner, and I've talked to a few of them, they're watching this debate very carefully. John Boehner may not get off the hook. You can still try to oust the speaker in the middle of the Congress.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah. Yesterday, we were told at the White House that they're very, very hard at work on the language for the new authorization for the use of military force. That's going to come soon. Might come as early as today, but they're working it out with Republicans and Democrats ahead of time because they want language that the Congress can kind of go along with. What's your read on it? What do you hear?
I think it's a fascinating issue to watch because, as you know, the president has repeatedly said, no ground troops. No ground troops. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you put that in the language, no ground troops, you lose Republican votes. Not all Republican votes, but a lot of Republican votes. And if you don't put in no ground troops, then you lose Democrats. So, and the president, and I think the Congress, their goal is to have a strong vote. You want to have a united front against ISIS, against these barbarians. But I can't see a strong vote because and we've talked to some Democrats who said, it's got to be in there. You got to put it in. You can't just say it. Because remember, could be one of the biggest votes, and it goes on for a long time. It could be for the next president. ISIS is still going to be a problem.
But they're still using it.
Yes, they're still using it. Yes.
Right.
So
14 years later.
I think how they thread the needle, they're going to have to get awfully creative in order for this to be a strong bipartisan vote. And right now, I can't see that.
And, last year, the president was saying, I heard him say several times at the White House, well, if Congress wants to send me a new authorization, that's fine, but I don't need it.
Right.
In the State of the Union, he said, I'm not sure he said I need it, but he said I want it.
Yes. No, he was very strong on that. And John Boehner has said, it's like a hot potato. He's like, all right, well, it's up to the president. And, of course, the president said, well, Congress could send me something. And because it's all in the details. Devil's in the details. And that, I thought his comments during the State of the Union really were somewhat surprising because this is going to require a ton of work and could go on for a while because they're going to have a lot of discussions. I think what you said is that they're working with Congress beforehand is very smart.
Mm-hmm. And the speaker said yesterday too, this is not going to be an easy lift. Whatever comes up, there's going to be a big, healthy debate on this bit, which I would have to add. There should be.
Yes.
Right? We're talking about something pretty serious here.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, I do think it's a serious debate. I think they're not going to be able to vote on it for a while. So there's going to be a lot of debates, and maybe there are amendments to this resolution. And there are a number of Tea Party Republicans who are going to vote no. They're going to be like, listen, I don't want this mission creep. So it's not going to be as partisan as the Iraq War was. It's very complicated, and a complicated problem for both leaders in Congress as well as the president.
Bob Cusack here with us from the Hill, talking about the big issues on the Hill, and things don't seem to have improved on the Prime Minister Netanyahu front either. We'll talk about that when we come back, and welcome your questions and comments at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Hadas Gold from Politico joining us in the next half hour. We'll talk to Brian Williams. Speaker Boehner announcing yesterday that an invitation has been extended and accepted by the Pope Francis to address a joint session of Congress on September 24. Bob Cusack with us from The Hill, editor-in-chief. So, Bob, this one seems to have been worked out with the White House and with Majority Leader, Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi. So everybody's happy. That's not the case with the invitation to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
No. Some Democrats talking about skipping the speech, and I think most will be there, certainly. But this has caused a lot of concern at the White House, obviously, with Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. The way this was handled right before an election in Israel, which is real trouble for Netanyahu. So, and obviously the White House has to be concerned. The relationship between Netanyahu and the president has been strained, and they're not exactly sure what he's going to say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right. Well, we know one thing is that he disagrees with President Obama's approach to negotiations with Iran.
Yes.
Right?
And Iran sanctions is something that Republicans have passed in the House. There's a pending bill in the Senate. It's bipartisan, but Senator Menendez, the former chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, said, okay, I'll give you a little more time until March. So the big question for McConnell is, should they vote on sanctions now or wait until March? Because the White House has said, if you bring a bill to the floor, basically now, you're going to really torpedo the whole thing, which, of course, is what some Republicans want.
But, what Netanyahu has done, it seems to me, is he has made U.S.-Israeli relations a political issue. And this is something before the Republicans and Democrats always supported eagerly. I mean, there were some dissenters, but basically everybody was behind this. And now they're split because of this speech.
Yeah. And
so why doesn't Netanyahu just cancel the speech?
Well, because they accepted, and they also knew, hey, because there are two things here. John Boehner invited them. Israel said yes, and they decided, let's not tell the White House.
Right, yeah.
We'll just keep it on down low.
Yeah, I guess. So President Obama says, all right, well, then you're coming to town, and you're not coming down here.
Exactly.
All right. How bad is it for Brian Williams? Can he survive? Hadas Gold joins us for the next half hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 33 minutes now after the hour on this Friday, February 6th. Winding up the week, winding up the program this morning. Bob Cusack is here for the entire hour as a friend of Bill, editor-in-chief of The Hill, thehill.com, of course. Bob, always good to have you here. Thank you. And we are joined by media reporter for Politico, a good friend of the program and a frequent guest, Hadas Gold. Hello, Hadas. Nice to see you, too.
Hi. Great to be here.
We've got media stuff to talk about, but first, a little bit of breaking news. Just out from the Department of Labor, the job numbers for January, 257,000 new private sector jobs. I think this is maybe 6 months in a row that it's over 200,000 and like maybe, I don't know, dozens of months where it's been up positive job growth.
Right.
The unemployment rate ticked up a little bit from 5.6 to 5.7%. President Obama, Bob, is going out to Indianapolis today to talk about the economy, so he'll, I'm sure, crow a little bit about that, rightfully so. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of inconsistent news throughout the Obama administration, and certainly Joe Biden saying the recovery summer, and then it wasn't. And now they're finally getting consistently good news on the economy. And really, you've seen Republicans having to change their argument to say, well, not everybody is benefiting from this. So, but this is more good news for the White House.
Right. Not such good news these days for Brian Williams. So, Hadas, your headline on Politico this morning is, why did Brian Williams lie? And the headline, maybe a little more colorful, on Huffington Post is, who's buying Lion Brian? Ooh. The word lie, he didn't just misremember.
So the headline you read was Jack Schaefer's column.
Jack Schaefer's column,
It was Jack Schaefer's column. And he was, looking at...
Front page of Politico.
Yes, he was looking at the, there's a long history of people in the public eye who have made these types of mistakes where they have maybe conflated inexperience. In Brian Williams' case, though, it's getting a little bit confusing because he had been telling the story that in 2003 he was on a helicopter in Iraq that was more or less brought down by an RPG, and that they spent 2 days in the middle of a sandstorm in Iraq, and it was harrowing. He has told this story a couple of times. He's told it on David Letterman. He told it once before with Alec Baldwin. But last Friday, he said it again, and it was repeated at a hockey game where he was honoring one of the soldiers.
Yeah.
It was posted, they did a segment on it on Nightly News. It was posted on Facebook, and then some of these soldiers apparently started talking back saying, hey, Brian, I was on that helicopter with you. We weren't shot down by an RPG. Where this gets confusing is after Brian Williams apologizes to them, says...
Sort of.
Well, yeah, he says, I looked back. Well, in his Facebook apology, he says, I looked back at my notes. You guys were right. Like, I never did that. And actually, if you look at the 2003 original report, they don't say in that original report that they were shot down from back when it actually happened. He says that he must have, after watching the video, whatever, on the broadcast on Wednesday night, he says, this was a bungled attempt to try and honor somebody. It was an interesting apology. But then we have conflicting reports of the people who were there. We have a pilot who has told CNN that while they weren't hit by an RPG, they were hit by small arms fires that were ricocheting inside of the helicopter. So that gives you the impression, so they were hit by something, obviously he had this harrowing experience. Other pilots are saying, no, actually, they weren't hit by anything, maybe dust. It was a really big snowstorm, which I'm sure if you're in a really big sandstorm. If you're in a really big sandstorm, it's still probably rather scary. The fact of the matter is that he is not lying about being in Iraq, being on a helicopter that had to be grounded.
And spending 2 nights in the desert.
Spending 2 nights in the desert with these people. But the detail of whether he was hit by an RPG or not, which is a pretty big detail, is what's turning this into a big thing. And a lot of it is that, I think that people are attaching themselves so much to this because Brian Williams is Brian Williams, and he's kind of looked at as a god in the newscaster business. 10 years, the anchor, he consistently gets amazing ratings. He's still beating the young gun David Muir, who's supposed to be the one that's supposed to take over. And I think I'm seeing so much from the conservative side going all over because they see NBC and MSNBC as one, and they see them as these liberals that just love to pretend that they were in the wars and that they want to be war heroes and all of this. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that, and I don't think you're going to see this ending Brian Williams' career because this isn't like a Dan Rather where he's trying to take down a president with documents that may or may not be real, like Dan Rather did with the Killian. Documents. So it's like telling a barroom story. If this was me or you and one of our friends caught us in this, they'd be like, dude, so that wasn't true. You've just been telling this story. But because he's Brian Williams, it's is his career going to end? You don't think it ends his career? No.
Do you, Bob? I think he's in trouble. I really do. I think that it may not end his career, but it could end his career at NBC. I think he's facing at least a long suspension because it goes right to credibility. And as Hadas was saying, I mean, the guy has done war reporting, which I have not done.
By the way, he was an outstanding reporter.
Outstanding journalist, and has a great, but totally. As his story has changed. The apology was not a great apology. It was a bad apology.
That the longer it went and the more he told it, the more it got embellished, right? Meaning, that, as you said, his early on, he didn't say he was shot down, but he adds that, kind of later.
Yeah, I agree that I don't think that this won't end in his career, but it will tarnish it and it will change it. NBC might they have to weigh it right now because he is still an incredibly popular newscaster, and so if they take him off for a certain amount of time, will that fix anything? Will that change anything? And you also are having some of these guys who have been saying, no, he was wrong, he was conflating this. They now don't want to talk anymore to the media because they're starting to feel guilty. One of them gave the quote where he said, I understand everybody's interest in this, but I feel like he apologized and this isn't the biggest deal in the world, and I want everybody to move on now. But
if it were Bill O'Reilly,
it would be
he'd
huge.
get away with it. Don't you think?
No, I don't know. I mean,
Really?
Ari Fleischer was saying this on Twitter. He was like, if this was Rush Limbaugh or Bill O'Reilly, and they had lied or conflated about being in a war zone, this would be front pages of everything, and everybody would be making a big deal out of it.
But I don't think people expect or have the trust in talk show hosts or radio, or TV or radio talk show host that they do in an anchor of a newscast. I don't expect it maybe as much.
I think it's different because he has such a great reputation. But at the same time, will the story stop? There are now questions about reporting in Katrina. And the apology he's going to have to do. I mean, I think Americans will forgive you, but this is a business, and it's going to come down to ratings.
So you mentioned Katrina, right? That now people are going back to saying, what else may he have conflated? You alluded to this in the answer to your first question. So here he talked about, he was asked, when did you sort of mature as an anchor? When did you realize, I mean, this is a really serious business? And he talks about Katrina, and he did a great job reporting from that the dome, the Astrodome or whatever, down there, Superdome. But he talks about this was his experience in Katrina.
When you look out of your hotel room window in the French Quarter and watch a man float by face down, when you see bodies that you last saw in Banda Aceh, Indonesia, and swore to yourself that you would never see in your country, I beat that storm. People have pointed out the French Quarter did not flood. He did not see. He might have seen. I'm sure he saw bodies in Katrina down there in New Orleans. We had a caller earlier this morning from New Orleans who lives in the French Quarter, and he said there was water in the gutters, but so again, he probably saw bodies. Maybe his hotel was in the French Quarter. Maybe it wasn't, but he did not see a body floating in the French Quarter. So there are going to be more of these things come out, don't you think?
Yeah, but if you looked into my history of telling stories, I'm sure of like past experiences, I'm sure you would find inconsistencies as well. And I do understand that he is a news anchor.
He is the number one news anchor in this country, whom people are supposed to trust every night.
Yeah, no, and I totally understand. I think that's actually the reason why this is becoming a big deal now, because he had been telling these stories on Letterman, on other events, but never before had he said it in the nightly newscast. And I think the fact that it was said again on the nightly newscast, that's where he came into trouble, because before it was just him telling stories, in more of an easier situation, and that everyone was asking why hadn't this come up before? And I think it was because he was said it in a little bit like maybe these soldiers weren't watching Letterman, they didn't know, it wasn't like headlined all over the place. But in fact, this was on the nightly newscast where 10 million people watch. They saw it, and that's the difference. He was reporting it in a reporter's arena.
His apology, I also have to. You would think someone who had covered so many politicians in trouble and surviving because they just did a flat-out apology, and I admit it, but his apology was not really an apology. He should have just
read his Facebook apology. His apology on Facebook was much more direct, and I felt like more honest than what he said.
So do you think he might, if let's say he survives, that he still has to come out and with a stronger and more direct, clear, flat-out apology?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think he will survive at NBC unless he gives a better apology, because that apology was really saying, it's just one-time situation. And clearly, now everybody is going back to his past. And right now, he is in the media churn. Everybody is talking about this. Everybody is looking into everything he said, going back, and he should have known that was going to happen with this. And I think that he's been saying it for so long, and his story has changed, and so that apology was kind of like, well, you caught me, you're right, and that's why I think that unless he has a much better apology and a mea culpa, that he won't survive at NBC.
Right. It's reported this morning, Brian Stelter, I think, on CNN is the one who's reporting that Tom Brokaw, according to Brian Stelter, is telling people at NBC he's got to go.
There's also a report in the New York Post saying that NBC executives had warned Williams to stop telling this tale. So that I think is also damning if that is accurate. And if Brokaw is coming out against Williams, that's a big problem.
The question before the House and before Bob Cusack and Hadas Gold is, should Brian Williams survive? What's your take on it? 866-55-PRESS. Our conversation continues when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week costs me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 12 minutes before the top of the hour here on a Friday, February 6th. Again, the latest job numbers are out. Good news on the jobs front, 250,000 new private sector jobs in the month of January. I don't know whether that's still leftover holiday jobs or whatever, but it's a good number. The unemployment rate ticked up from 5.6 to 5.7%. In studio with us, Hadas Gold from Politico, media reporter, and Bob Cusack here for the entire hour as a friend of Bill and editor-in-chief of The Hill. What would you do if you found out one of your reporters was just flat out lied in a story?
That would be a bad day, but I think you really have.
That guy, he or she might be looking for another job.
Yeah, I mean, you have those times when, and everyone certainly makes mistakes, and we've never been confronted with this type of thing. And of course, Brian Williams is such a big personality, but you have to attack it, and that's what I'm sure NBC is doing right now. In this kind of situation, you got to get both sides of the story. You've got to say, how did this happen? If you didn't know about it at first, which now is being raised into question, and you've got to, I think, make quick decisions. I mean, I think NBC has got to make some type of decision over the next 24 hours of what they're going to do. Suspend them while you investigate this, but you have to take some type of action. But
or
clearly,
just have him come out tonight and say, "Look, I handled this poorly at first. I should just have flat out said."
But
this,
then
right?
the problem,
maybe Hadas, could he do an apology tonight? I'm sorry, Bob.
Well, just one thing is that whether how much, like on the Katrina stuff. I mean, they've got to look into that. I mean, is this just confined to that? Because if this spreads, then I don't know if an apology is going to do it.
Yeah, I think that they're probably right now going through a lot of his public statements and stories and searching through them. If this Katrina thing was like in a short statement of where he said from your hotel room when really he was like out in a different neighborhood or he was in a different hotel looking out a window, I think that the Iraq story is a much bigger deal. And I could see them suspending it. I mean, if he was going to do another apology, then it should have been last night and it should have been addressed because I feel like it was at the height of it right now. But I think that what NBC is doing is they're really trying to investigate because they've got two conflicting reports of different pilots claiming that they were on the helicopter. And I would hope that if I was at NBC, I would be sending, one of their top foreign correspondents or national security reporters to sit down with all the people who were make a story out of it, sit down with all the pilots who were there, talk to them about it, incorporate a piece about the memory confusion that a lot of people have been posting articles about how when you're in a traumatic situation where, I don't know about you, but if I was flying in a helicopter in the middle of Iraq in 2003 and then we had to land really quickly in a sandstorm and then we had to stay on the ground for 2 days in a sandstorm, I'd consider it like a big event, how people will misconstrue big events years after and that come to believe whatever that they think is the actual story. Do a whole segment on that. Have Brian Williams be interviewed by somebody where he talks about it and he says, I just kind of came to believe this story of mine and I feel so horrible. This is my journalism career is on the line here, and then see where it goes from there.
Let's say hello to Joey out in Chicago on the great WCPT. Hello, Joey.
Good morning. When your number one job is to be trustworthy and for people to believe the news you're speaking, you cannot lie about anything. He should resign, and this is a big thing for NBC because they're running commercials with him saying we're the trustworthy news organization you come to find out the truth on his commercials with Brian Williams. This is a big deal. You cannot let this go. It is a big deal. You cannot lie, period, if you want to be trustworthy. He has to go.
All right. Got it, Joey. Trust is that's a big part of it. Right?
Definitely.
We trusted Uncle Walter, right?
That's
you trust Brother Brian.
Yeah.
And they do advertise that.
That's why the only way to get through it is to be incredibly transparent into how and why this happened and not just maybe suspend him and send him away for a little bit of time.
And he received a Walter Cronkite award a while back. This is a problem from a journalistic perspective because of the trust that you need in journalism, and also from the veterans groups, some of them who have been very outspoken, and they're not going to watch NBC, some of them, because of this.
If this were not like a military situation, not like in warfare, again, it might not be such a big deal, but it is. It was Iraq and with members of our military. And I heard he even told somebody once that his daughter was Peter Pan. How far?
That's true.
How far can you go? All right. Hey, Hadas, great to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
And Bob, great to see you.
Absolutely.
As always, thanks for being here as a friend of Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
We send you and invite you to check out, again, Politico.com and thehill.com. And I'll wrap things up with a parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. the court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, is there any truth to rumors that the Saudi royal family were the big money behind Al-Qaeda? Sadly, we may never know because the pages of the Congressional Commission report that explored the role of Saudi Arabia on the attacks of September 11 were sealed by President George W. Bush. All we know is that 15 out of 19 of the hijackers, terrorists, were from Saudi Arabia. We also know, remember, on September 11, all flights in the United States were grounded except flights for members of the Saudi royal family who were in the country at the time. And we know that former Senator Robert Graham, co-chair of the commission, who's been pushing for that full report to be made public, says it confirms Saudi financial support for the terrorist organizations, including Al-Qaeda. Who knows if any of that is true, but surely we have a right to know, and the only way to know is for President Obama to order release of the entire report now. Hey, folks, have a great weekend. Come back and see us again on Monday.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We'll be looking for you.